Reaction to a Local 15 News reality check that is getting results. 4 accused cockfighters in Mobile County are now facing federal charges after we exposed an illegal animal fighting operation south of Citronelle. Tonight, one animal rights group says the federal indictment sends a strong message.
And they basically get stabbed so many times till one dies and then it's declared one.
Local 15 News went undercover and documented illegal cockfighting derbies in Mobile County. The feds took notice, busting the operation last summer. We were there as federal agents searched the compound on Hutto Road. Now, months later, 4 people face charges ranging from sponsoring animal fighting to destruction of federal evidence. All 4 pled not guilty this week.
This sends a strong message to those involved in cockfighting, especially in the state of Alabama, that they're not above the law.
The Humane Society of the United States says the operation near Citronelle was significant. Tens of thousands of dollars exchanged hands at every fight, and thousands of birds were brutally killed for amusement. The federal indictment notes how the Alabama Game Fowl Breeders Association raised money at cockfights to help lobby lawmakers in Montgomery to keep state cockfighting laws weak. It mentions how they had a, quote, friend who was a state representative. The group's secretary, Chelsea Ann Helm, is one of the 4 named in the indictment.
You have a group that is for cockfighters, that is a registered nonprofit in the state, that is raising money at an illegal cockfighting venture to fight legislation. We've known this for years. I'm happy that the FBI recognized that as a serious issue.
And the Humane Society of the United States says there are other animal fighting operations in our area.
Well, tonight, only on NBC 15, a judge dropped the charges against a suspected burglar after a Mobile police officer failed to show up for court on 2 different occasions.
NBC 15's Christian Jennings is getting answers into why the case was thrown out in this NBC 15 reality check. Christian, the victim in this case, very frustrated. He had to take time off work to be in court.
That's right, Greg. And the victim even provided police with this surveillance video you're looking at behind me, showing a man stealing items from his SUV. So he thought it would be a slam dunk case. Instead, a judge threw it out because the officer wasn't in court. In this home surveillance video, you can clearly see a man drive by on a tricycle. Later, he's seen breaking into this SUV parked on Palmetto Street in Mobile. This happened August 16th. On August 21st, Jared Slaughter was arrested and charged with the crime. The SUV belongs to Dr. Jason Valentine.
It happened to be after I'd washed my car, so we had some good fingerprints.
On September 11th, Valentine showed up in court for the preliminary hearing, but the arresting officer, John Forward, wasn't there. District Attorney Ashley Rich says the night before the hearing, the officer told the DA's office he couldn't make it because he had training. The next day, Judge Jill Phillips reset the case for October 10th. But the DA says the officer was a no-show again. This time, her office didn't get a heads up, so the judge dismissed the case.
I missed 2 days of work over this, trying to, help, decrease the crime in my neighborhood. And it was sort of a very frustrating experience.
Now, Dr. Valentine's concern is, will the suspect strike again?
He's now realized he can get away with some of this stuff in our neighborhood, and we'll go back to those behaviors.
Rich says her office reminds officers a week before they're due in court that they have an appearance coming up. She even implemented a program several years ago to reduce situations like this one.
When we saw the need to make sure that supervisors were notified if law enforcement officers failed to appear in court and a case was dismissed. We try to make sure, that we are all working together.
We reached out, of course, to the Mobile Police Department. Assistant Chief Clay Godwin says they're now investigating to find out why the officer didn't show up. Godwin says there are department policies that address this kind of thing. We should point out that the DA says this is the first time that Officer Forward has ever just not showed up for a case. The DA does now have the option, though, of presenting this particular case to a grand jury for an indictment. Kim?
Tonight, Local 15 News has uncovered a mistake made during a recent repaving project in Midtown. That mistake on Government Street blocked storm drains that are vital to keep water off the road. Local 15's Andrea Ramey joins us in studio. Andrea, Aldot was quick to fix the problem.
That's right, Kim. Crews dug out chunks of asphalt like this that blocked the storm drains, 8 total along Government Street.
Might have to cut that out some more.
crews shoveled asphalt after sawing into the street today. AlDOT says 8 storm drains were covered, 2 almost completely in the latest resurfacing project that started in January and ended in March.
They sealed off the drains.
We became aware of the issue when viewer John Rouse noticed the water wasn't draining properly and took pictures of the covered storm drains.
Flooding down all the water piles down Mohawk Street. And when it really rains, it really gets at least a foot deep.
We told AlDOT about the covered drains yesterday.
As soon as we found out about it, you know, there were a handful of people that went out and looked at it, and I got our crews and we jumped out there first thing this morning and started correcting.
Mobile Asphalt was awarded the $350,000 paving contract and did the work, but AlDOT says its own inspectors should have caught the mistake, and the agency may eat the cost of fixing it.
It should be a minimal cost, one day to get out there and do some work with some equipment, some man hours. I'm glad it was finally brought to our attention. I'm glad we're able to finally get out there and fix it, but I hate that it happened.
AlDOT says in the few months the storm drains were covered, the agency did not receive any complaints about standing water in the road. And we want to thank John for bringing this issue to our attention. It's
A way to protect your home from burglars.
According to Mobile crime stats, there were an average of 7 burglaries a day last year. That's almost a 20% increase from the year before.
Local 15's Andrea Ramey investigates different ways to reinforce your doors and found one that works. That's in this reality check.
It took little effort to bust through this locked front door. The reason? Short screws. The screws that come with most door strike plates are short, a ½ inch or less, that only go into the door frame, not the stud.
So it's really not doing too much.
No, ma'am.
So we tried using longer screws. Installing 3-inch stainless steel screws that went into the stud, supposedly making it much harder to kick in. And it was tough for me. But the longer screws were no match for our chief photographer, Mike Corey. After just a few kicks, the screws bent and the door flew right open.
I've seen them have both and the door just kick right in.
Knowing how to stop burglars is crucial. According to the FBI, the Mobile area has a high burglary rate, ranking in the top 10% of metro areas for burglaries in the country in 2015. Worried we'd exhausted all options, we contacted Imperial Locksmith. Owner Robert Stout showed us this. It's called a jam enforcer.
You basically would just line it up here with the holes in the door, and then you would drill in your screws all the way down. That way when they kick the door, like I said, the force goes this way, this way.
You can hire a locksmith to install one, or you can make it a DIY project and buy a similar one at Lowe's for $50, which is what we did. The kit came with 7 3-inch screws that we installed in the same door Mike Corey busted right through. We already knew my kicks weren't going to do much. But what about when Mike kicked it? And kept kicking it. It didn't budge, so we tried it as a team. Despite our best efforts, the door stayed put, proving this $50 purchase was well worth it.
I don't think it's going down.
One more time.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
It's a pretty tough item.
The average dollar loss per burglary, according to the FBI, more than $2,300 for victims. If you want to check out the products we've highlighted in this report, head to our website, local15tv.com. In the newsroom, Andrea Ramey, Local 15 News.
Good advice, and now I know why Andrea and Mike were limping around the newsroom for a couple of days.
Exactly, kicking in doors is something so simple, just $50.
Yep, and it can make a big difference, yeah. Don't forget, if you have a story that you want us to investigate or an issue that needs to be addressed by our advocacy team, be sure to let us know. We'll get you answers.
Yeah, call a Reality Check hotline. The number is 877-315-7268.